Imagine a world where human lives were traded like commodities, where empires rose on the backs of the broken. Two colossal systems of bondage, one ancient, woven into the fabric of daily life, the other modern, forged in chains of race and greed. Roman slavery versus American slavery, horrific in their brutality, yet worlds apart in their rules and scars. Welcome to the hidden past, where we unearth the forgotten truths that shaped our world. Today, we dive deep into how these shadows of oppression differed. If you're new here, hit subscribe and that bell. We're just getting started on this 12-minute journey through history's darkest alleys. Let's begin in the Eternal City, where slavery wasn't a sin, it was a system. At the peak of the Roman Empire around the 2nd century CE, 10 to 20% of the population, that's up to 12 million souls, lived in chains. Picture it, an empire sprawling from foggy Britain to sun-baked Syria, all fueled by this invisible workforce. But here's the hidden twist. Most slaves weren't hidden away in remote fields. They thrived, or survived, in bustling cities like Rome itself, powering the aqueducts that quenched the thirst of a million mouths, or scrubbing the soils beneath marble streets. Who were these people? Not one race, not one story. Captured in war from Gaul to Greece, sold for debts in Italy, or born into servitude. Skin tones range from the pale of Germania to the deep hues of North Africa. A Syrian scholar might tutor a senator's son, while a British laborer toiled on a latifundia, a massive estate feeding the elite. Slaves hauled legion supplies, cooked camp meals, even dug latrines on the front lines. But armed them? Never. Citizenship was for the free. Trust was a luxury Rome couldn't afford. Yet, Roman slavery hid layers of complexity. Sure, the lash cracked over mine workers. Dire duriciculars described them dying in droves underground, bodies worn to husks under endless blows. Gladiators spilled blood for sport. Prostitutes serve as brothels without a whisper of consent. But flip the coin. Household slaves could be doctors, accountants, even estate managers. Educated Greeks fetched prices rivaling fine horses. 2,000 sesterces or more, about 2 years' pay for a soldier. Status symbols, these slaves. The rich flaunted hundreds like trophies, climbing social ladders on human backs. And the state? It owned thousands, 700 just for the aqueducts alone. Without them, Rome's grandeur crumbles. No bath steaming with imported oils, no banquet where slaves poured wine and endured leers. Punishments were savage, whippings, branding, crucifixion for runaways. Kill your master, the whole household might burn. But fear of revolt tempered the whip. Seneca urged mercy, warning that caged beasts bite back. Manumission, that's freedom's faint light, offered hope. Skilled slaves saved from their peculium, a tiny personal fund, to buy liberty. Up to 20% walk free, some rising as freedmen, merchants, or advisors. Gladiator Flammer won his rudies, wooden sword of freedom, for time but fought on, dying a hero at 30. It wasn't equality, but in Rome, slavery was a phase, not a forever curse. No racial taint. Anyone could fall, anyone could climb. Now, cross the oceans to a new nightmare, American slavery, born not of conquest but commerce. Enslavement scarred Africa long before Columbus. Trans-Saharan caravans from 1000 BCE, Arab traders castrating men for harems, shipping millions east. By the 15th century, Europeans crashed the party. Portuguese forts dotted West Africa, buying captive from local kings for gold and guns. The Middle Passage, a floating hell. 12.5 million Africans chained in holds, 10 to 20% perishing in vomit and fever. Britain alone shipped 3.2 million, the U.S. absorbing 305,000, ballooning to 4 million by 1860 through births in bondage. But here's the hidden origin story. America's chains didn't start with Africans. Enter indentured servitude, white Europe's forgotten slaves. From 1607 Jamestown, poor Brits and Irish, 300,000 to 500,000, were shipped like cattle. Kids snatched from London alleys, convicts press-ganged, women bred for labor. Contracts promised freedom after 4 to 7 years, but tricks abounded, extended for idleness, whipping for whispers. Elizabeth Abbott, kidnapped teen, lashed 500 times till death. No justice. Half died en route or in fields. Survivors rarely owned land. These white slaves toiled alongside the first Africans in 1619. 20 Angolans sold at Jamestown, technically indentured. Tobacco fields birthed the bees. But by 1660s, laws hardened. Virginia decreed children of enslaved mothers slaves for life. John Punch, black runaway, got perpetual chains. His white partners, just extra years. Hereditary, racial, a poison pill. Bacon's rebellion in 1676. Poor whites and blacks united against elites. Planters panicked, codifying race to divide. Psychological wages, Du Bois called it. Poor whites got scraps of superiority, stoking hate to shield the rich. American chattel slavery stripped souls bare. No peculium, no manumission for most, lifelong, generational. Plantations churn cotton. The South's gold, 50% of U.S. exports by 1860. Field hands rose at dawn for 16-hour days, whips cracking over backs. Frederick Douglass's Aunt Hester, stripped and blooded for a lover's glance. Laws banned murder but winked. Owners swore innocence, walked free. Runaways branded, toes severed. One had mourned a slave, toes burnt off. Hidden horrors for women. Breeders from puberty, assaulted without recourse. Kids weeded at 7, full field by 12. Urban slaves, 500,000 by 1850s. Built cities, but literacy? Banned. 1 to 5% could read. Douglass smuggled papers, rose to roar against a lie. Rebellions? Nat Turner's 1831 spa killed 60 whites. Retaliation slaughtered 200 blacks. Divide and conquer peaked. Owners pitted slaves against each other. Holidays laced with booze and brawls to fracture bonds. So, how did they differ? Rome's web was colorblind. Slaves everywhere, from scribes to scum sweepers, with paths to freedom. Brutal. Yes, but integrated, economic, almost normalized. America's? A racial machine engineered for eternity. Blacks as perpetual property, whites as fragile allies against the other. Rome feared revolt, offered Mercer's illusion. America codified cruelty, betting on division. One built empires on diverse backs, the other fortunes on fractured ones. Yet echoes linger. Post-1865, black code chained freedmen. Poor whites pitted against blacks in Jim Crow's cage. Du Bois saw the thread, elites weaving race to conquer the conquered. Today, 50 million in modern slavery, trafficked, forced, hidden in plain sight. Rome's lessons? Humanity transcends chains. America's? Vigilance against division's venom. That's a hidden past of two slaveries, vastly different, eternally damning. What shocked you most? Drop it in the comments. Like if you learned something new. Subscribe for more unearthed truths. Next week, the lost libraries of Alexandria. Until then, remember, history hides, but we seek. Fade to black.